heard Steve Harvey talking about fleas in a jar. He said that at the beginning of an experiment, they get a number of fleas, let's pretend this is one, and they place them in a jar. And he said fleas have the ability to jump 200 times their size vertically. It's crazy. They put these fleas in a jar with a glass lid placed on top. The fleas fly up, they hit the lid, and they fall back down to the jar. Well, after a short time, the fleas adjust to the lid and they begin jumping lower until they start jumping slightly below the glass lid so they don't hit it anymore. After 3 days, the glass lid is removed. Now, since the fleas had already learned to limit themselves from jumping high, they stayed in the jar and there was no longer a lid needed to keep them inside. They just stopped jumping. They had already been conditioned to the fact that they can't escape their environment, so they don't even try. Now, no matter whether the lid is on or off, the fleas will stay in the jar forever. I'm Terri Savelle, your cheerleader of dreams, and I want to talk to you about taking the lid off your jar. I want you to be, do, and have all that God has for you. And I'm going to show you how I learned to take the lid off of my jar. And I want you to take this quick little quiz to tell if your lid is on. In other words, you're not progressing towards a better life. But first, before we go over this quiz, I want to ask you to do a favor for me. Would you help me and my team grow this channel on YouTube by just subscribing to our channel? It only takes 1 second to just slide your finger down or over or up. I'm not totally sure. But when you see that arrow button that says subscribe, would you push that button for us? It helps us more than you know to get this message out to more people. So thank you so much for making a difference. And this week, I put together a free download for you that not only has this one book I highly recommend to change your habits, but I also listed my top recommendations of other books that have helped me financially, one book that's helped me reset my metabolism, no kidding, and go back to burning fat the way our bodies should. So many awesome books in your list. So click the link in the description and you can get that list right now. Okay, Steve Harvey says these are the signs, like those fleas in the jar, that your lid is still on the jar and it's time to take it off. So listen to these questions, or these are actually statements. If you're not excited about waking up in the morning, if you're sitting around every day bored out of your mind, if you have time to do everything that anyone asks you to do, if you have time to watch all your scheduled TV programs every week and not miss an episode, if you're getting plenty of sleep, if your dreams make sense to everyone around you, and last one, if you can achieve your dreams by yourself. If so, it's time to take the lid off the jar. I used to identify with so many on that list, and finally, I took the lid off the jar and started moving on with my life in a new direction. And the way I did it was not by some big, gigantic event that took place in my life. No, it was making very small, tiny improvements in my daily routine that changed everything. My habits. One of my habits was to force myself to start reading. Now, if you followed me for any length of time, you know this, but I had to decide to read books that could actually improve my life. Joel Osteen said, too many people suffer from destination disease. We reach a certain level and we just want to coast on what we already know. Well, that was me. In fact, studies have shown that 50% of people after they graduate from high school will never read an entire book again. Well, one reason is that we see learning as a period of life instead of just a way of life. I think I just didn't see a need to grow anymore, because you tend to think, I've got a job, I don't need to keep learning. But I'm telling you, if you want your life to grow, you have to grow. So this is how you start removing the lid in your life. I heard Jim Rohn say that your money will only grow to the extent that you grow. And now I know that to be true. When I started making it a habit to read books, which I used to hate doing, within months, my income significantly grew. I got promoted, then promoted again, and it hasn't stopped. So I bought a book that told me why only 5% of people are truly successful, and if I did what they do, I could move out of the 95% who are either unhappy in their marriage or at work, they aren't reaching their financial or physical goals, and on and on. In fact, the book said, successful people do simple things that are easy to do over and over and over. And I was like, what? Come again? It said, if these are things anyone can do, why are only 5% successful? Well, here's the answer. Because they're also easy not to do. And while anyone could do them, most won't. So the difference is successful people are aware of how their simple daily habits give them a slight edge that leads to a very successful life. Here's one example that's guaranteed to change your life. If you just read 10 pages of a good book, a book aimed at improving your life every day, could you do that? Well, of course you could. But what's easy to do is also easy not to do. In fact, Jeff Olson says, if you read 10 pages of a good book today, will your life change? Of course not. If you don't read 10 pages of a good book today, will your life fall apart? Of course not. See, when you make the right choice, you won't see the result, at least not today. And we live in this instant gratification world where we want to see a bum become a boxing champion within 2 hours, right? Cue the Rocky music. But success comes from the boring, unsexy, mundane routine each day that 95% won't do. Bottom line, little changes compounded over time do make a difference. See, the things that don't look like they matter, they do matter. They not only make a difference, they make all the difference. For example, going for a 20-minute walk versus watching TV for 20 minutes. You might think it doesn't matter, but in a year, trust me, you're going to see dramatic changes. In fact, Jeff Olson says most people are waiting for that quantum leap to success, but that's not how it happens. He said most people don't want to do the little things that add up to success because at first, they don't add up to success. He explains it like this. He said, when you commit to reading 10 pages of a book each day, you're not going to wake up tomorrow thinking like a success. But if you do that for a year, that's 3,650 pages or about 15 books. He said that's how you start seeing drastic changes. It's in your simple daily habits. In fact, do you remember that scripture that says, to whom much is given, much is required? Well, you could say it like this. Much is required in order for much to be given. So, I had this big guy, this buff, muscular guy who was on that TV show Big Brother. He asked me the other day if I had read a certain book on habits because he wanted my opinion. Well, I told him I had read that book, but this is the book I recommend he read because it's so easy to read, it's life-changing, and it will convince you that your simple disciplines will turn into massive success. So I put the title of this book in your free download along with my top 5 recommendations for your reading list. So this book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, will inspire you in such a simple way to make some changes in your daily routine. It's never too late to start, but it's always too late to wait. So don't forget, I am cheering you on to live your dreams. Hey YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and to get more inspirational content, click one of these videos right here. And remember, I'm cheering you on to live your dreams.